All right. All right, let me get my lovely script together. Okay, good morning. It is 9:08 a.m. As a preliminary matter, this is John Brescher, Chair of the Town Government Study Committee. Permitted to confirm that all members in person participated on the agenda. Our president can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Rick Atherton.
Aye.
Curtis Barnes.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Tucker Holland.
Aye.
And Campbell Sutton was on, and I trust she'll be on in a bit. This open meeting of the Town Government Study Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the Governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comments to those members of the public that have joined via Zoom. For this meeting, the Town Government Study Committee is convened by video conference via Zoom app posted on the town's website and how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along unless using the posted agenda unless I, the chair, notes otherwise. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, we're going to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After concluding remarks, chair will go down the line of members, invite each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold till your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged by and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Okay. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda as written. May I please have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made. Made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, let's do roll call vote. Rick Atherton.
Aye.
Curtis Barnes.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Tucker Holland.
Aye.
And the chair, John Brescher, votes aye as well. And it would appear as though Campbell just joined. Hello again, Campbell. Okay. Next item on the agenda is...
Hello, thanks for letting me in.
Next item on the agenda is public comment. Seeing as we have no members of the public, I don't think there will be any public comment right now. Approval of the minutes of May 13th, 2021. May I please have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Let's do all those in favor by roll call vote. Rick Atherton.
Aye.
Curtis Barnes.
Aye.
Campbell Sutton.
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Aye.
Tucker Holland.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. All right, let's move to the meat of our discussion today, which is discussion of the finalization of the report to the select board and town meeting and topics to include in the report and motions related thereto. So I know that Curtis and Rick are going to have some motions for discussion. So I guess my sense is that we would just start with those unless anybody has any sort of suggestion otherwise.
I haven't had a chance to read them. I just printed them out.
Okay.
Just got them.
I have to go off and print them out because they're still in my computer. I forgot to make a copy for me.
Yeah, print them out because I just printed mine out. I got to go back out.
I
and get
will
the
be
minutes.
back in 30 seconds.
Yeah, and I'm going to get the minutes. I just printed.
Okay.
Bye.
All right. So,
John,
yes, Campbell.
I had a quick
Please.
question.
Yes.
So a couple of the motions I noticed were on topics that we had already written in our final draft memo to the select board, and I just wanted to see if we could sort of compare what we had said in January or when that was, and with what's being proposed.
Sure. There's no reason we can't do that, he says ambitiously.
I have the one from September. Are we talking the September one, John?
I think we're talking about the one that we sent to the select board.
That we
Which I
present,
believe Is the September? No, that's going way back.
No, this would be from November 4th to the what we
Report.
actually sent to the select board.
All right, because I've got the one from September.
in it, we had made a, regarding parking commissions and
Yep.
license commissions and things, we had already made statements, and I just wanted to see how those would align with the the motions that are being made. Does that make sense?
That oddly does make sense. I mean, basically, I would say that when this is just my sense, but when we come to one of the motions, I think we would, if we've already addressed it, I would say sort of looking at, or just give a brief overview, or I have it up on my screen, can read what we wrote back in November to see if this is about.
Oh, can you send that out again? Because it's not coming up in my computer.
Sure.
Because
Yes,
I
Send
also
it to me
have it up.
now. So if you send it
Just-
now, I'll just print it out again.
There you go. Traveling through cyberspace as I talk.
John, am I back? Curtis?
You're back.
Thank you.
You might have to print this out too.
Uh,
All right.
Yes.
So with this in mind, I know Curtis and Rick have started with have some motions. Who would like to start first?
Well, let me print this out first.
Okay.
It's in my-
Why don't
There it is.
we, John, just a suggestion that we
Yes.
start with, I was gonna say start with Rick's and then move to Curtis's.
Sure.
And now that I've seen what a motion is supposed to look like, because I don't know what they're supposed to look like, I could maybe write some by Thursday's meeting. I have
Yeah,
a
let's
couple.
start with Rick.
Okay,
with
you want
me?
to do that?
Sure.
Is Linda back?
Not yet.
Why don't we save a little bit of time and wait for her to get back?
Sounds good to me.
Back. I have
Back.
it. Yep, I have it.
Cool.
Just the printer's in a different room.
All
Are we
right,
gonna
so
start with,
I'm-
or why don't you, wouldn't it make more sense to go down what you put out in November and see if there's any things we got to star and go back to?
Well,
What we're gonna do, Linda, while you were
Yeah.
away, all decision, to just start with the motions that have already, draft motions that have been proposed. We're starting with Rick's and then we'll move to Curtis's, and then we can, to your suggestion, maybe review what we had
Yeah.
written.
I think
Well,
I
we
think we're
may
gonna
have
go.
already,
yeah.
we may have already done that in what John sent. Why would we do that twice?
Well, the interesting part is I don't think we've ever made, and this is
We have-
this is to Rick's point. We've never made any motions. So I think this is sort of having the motion made and then sort of reviewing what we've done. That's my sense on how we sort of,
Side by side.
yes, exactly. Side by side on that.
Let me only say that my notes here were topics for motions. These are not the motions per se, and if Campbell wants to draft them up, I'd love to have her do it if we decide to go ahead.
Nice.
Know how to write one, but thank you for the, since I don't have enough on my plate.
I hear you. All right, Rick, do you want to go through? I mean, I believe you have 4 motions. So you want to start with the first one?
Sure. So all I did was sort of pull out what I thought were 4 areas that interested me. I think they've all been listed in our issues memorandum that's sort of been added to over time. The first one And I'll just read, these motions are just sort of my draft there, as it says at the top, it's a draft. Move that the town charter be amended to require an annual presentation of the town's organization chart to the select board for its approval. And then I sort of go through a comment and the section from another town, which I think was instructive. I think it's clear to me from the information you receive in the town report and that was submitted to our committee that the organization charts need to be expanded to reflect reporting relationships, and especially important so that the select board is alert to what those relationships are. And usually when you have an org chart, it should show who reports to whom, and that person is reviewed under the, presumably the town policy to have annual performance reviews and where they stand in the organization chart. So I just think this is something they should have been doing all along. And there's a section in the charter, section 4.2D, which lists, I think, currently up to 15 items that the town manager is responsible for. And this could easily be added there as just another section. And she puts it on the list and reports to the select board annually. So that would be the thrust of this motion. And whether or not we want to make motions specifically today or have a discussion about them, I sort of leave that to the chair to decide how we're going to proceed.
Mr. Chair, I don't remember ever discussing this in that great a detail. Maybe
Well,
I
I sent out ample information, maybe before you joined, Linda, but it has been discussed, so.
Yeah, but I don't remember discussing this for a long, long time and not in this kind of detail because there's another, we can't get rid of the Parks and Rec Commission. It's not just the school committee because the Parks and Rec Commission was established.
How are we talking about Parks and Rec?
Linda,
Because he said
where-
anything but the school committee.
no, excuse me. I think what this does, and I can send out an organizational chart that would give an example of this that I found on the Pembroke website, which I found very instructive, but I think this would also help with that section of the Parks and Recs, because then the shift of where those departments are would be seen in this organizational chart that the town manager would put together. So any departments that were dissolved or what have you, which this gives it the power to do, any changes, you would just have a chart showing the changes and whether it's streamlined or what have you, and who's answerable to who. But I was going to say to Rick that I do have a chart that I think reflects this idea that, might be helpful for people that like to see what, have an example of what you're talking about.
Tucker, I think you
we
had your
need to
hand
be
up.
Careful. I wasn't finished speaking, by the way. I think
Well,
we
you didn't
need
raise
to
your
be
hand
careful.
either because we can't see what you're doing.
There's no way to do a hand on this thing. I'm not on my computer anyway. I've looked for it. This is only administrative, I would assume. And I don't like to assume when we're talking about shalls and may and all that stuff, because we don't have any jurisdiction over the Parks and Rec Commission as far as abolishment. Well, it's set up by state statute and it cannot be abolished by anybody, whether the selectman or a town manager. So I'm just talking about, is this just administrative? Or is this an attempt to get a hold of the NP and EDC? I want to know what the basis of this section is.
Rick, go ahead.
I'd be happy to explain. This isn't doing anything to any way our town is currently set up, Linda. All this does is say, show us a chart with who reports to whom. It's very simple. And there's nothing to do with Park and Rec or the Town Government Study Committee or the Finance Committee or the Natural Resources Department or wherever you want to go. It just asks for a presentation to the board of the town's current structure. End of discussion.
Well, that's not true because number 2 says you can establish or get rid of. Number 3, except that's just functions that shall submit. I don't mind is submitting a flow chart every year, but this seems to be going farther than a flow chart because it says you can establish new town departments. You can do this, you can do that. That's not just simply putting in a flow chart every year. I don't like this section. I have a feeling that there's more to this section and I don't think it's appropriate.
I think if I could interrupt for a
Linda.
moment. I think what
Campbell, can you just please wait? I mean, like I've been patiently waiting
Hand up.
here.
Tucker, go
This-
ahead.
I mean, we're going to be here for 5 days if this is like the method by which we're going to go through these things. So let me just say, Rick is absolutely correct that this item has come up before, and it was, as I recall, in the context of originally when Teresa Williams, I think, came with an issue. This was seen as a method by which folks could more quickly identify perhaps whom the appropriate party is to go to. So I think that it is wholly appropriate to have an organizational plan. My original question, why I raised my hand for Rick was, Rick, does what you have here, does it address what the concern about the reporting relationships and so forth? Because I just wonder whether, because I think there is some form of what someone might call an organizational chart in the annual report.
Yes.
So if that is not an adequate description, does this language need to have more color? That was my question.
Yes, Rick.
John, just to respond to that, I think that's going to get us bogged down again. And I think it really is going to be up to the select board to have discussion with the town manager about what form of an organization chart is acceptable to them. If they want a chart like the ones we see in our annual report, which doesn't show much of anything and it doesn't always reflect reality, that's up to them. All I'm trying to do is make sure there's a process annually by which the select board is charged with approving what the town manager brings to them. And as much as it might be interesting to fill it out, Tucker, I'm reluctant to go there. I think it's very difficult. The rest of this section was just to be illustrative ideas from Long Meadow, not necessarily how we should handle it. I think I'm trying to say with all of these, town council should properly draft the intent of our motions if we move to incorporate these into our report.
Sorry, Rick, my only question was just like, would someone say today the board approves the annual report so that there is in effect it's taking place, but you see what I'm saying?
I do. I think the intent here would be to make it more explicit. The annual report is 150 pages, and to imply that the select board approves every item mentioned in there. For example, town councils, should they be required to list the suits and claims against the town in the annual report or not? I'm just making up another example, Tucker. And so I think this is an important enough issue for the public to understand how the town's government is organized so they can follow the chain of command in the Teresa Williams matter, if, as an example, or in any other way they might want to be interested in. I like to use the Natural Resources Department. Who performs an annual review and who does Jeff Carlson report to? I don't think everybody on that line actually reports to the town manager, but I don't know for sure.
I don't like this, what's written. I think if we want just an organizational chart posted every year, how the flow rolls, I don't have any problem with that language. I have a great deal of problem with this language.
So, well,
I don't know how to affect it any other way.
Rick, go ahead.
Linda, just so we understand, the motion is just the first two lines. The rest is just comment. It doesn't even have to go along.
Right.
It just says move the charter be amended to require an annual presentation of the town's organization chart to the select board for
Yeah,
approval.
leave it there, put a period there and get rid of the rest of it, or specifically split it out where it says comment. But right now, the motion is the whole thing.
I have no problem with taking any of my comments out of my motions if that helps to move things along. This is a draft for discussion, and I certainly agree that the motion is the motion. And the comment is really more for us. If we want to include comments to help others understand where we're going, fine. If we don't, that's perfectly all right with me.
All right, Campbell, your hand is up.
Where is the little hand thing anyway?
Linda, show the participants at the bottom of your computer and click it, and then you'll see the participants on the right side.
Yeah, I know that, but I don't see the little hand thing on my, I've
Down
never
at the
been able to see-
bottom right corner.
Oh, look at that.
I got merge meeting window. No,
All right,
where?
Campbell, you're muted.
There's
we go.
3 dots next to participant. And under that, it says more. And you tap on that and then different options come up. Do you have that on yours, Linda?
No, it's weird. I just have us, those of us who are here.
Anyway, so what I wanted to say was that I agree with this motion. I think it's a very good idea. I think it helps everyone and for review, I think it helps, everyone, even the people in the government for the town government. I see that the article the suggestion is to have it drafted by town council. So I think that is very appropriate. And the section 6-1 does not have anything to do with our charter. It is removed from another town's charter and to me is but an example of what can be asked for or, what is provided. It results in a very specific type of flow chart. I think that would be, again, very helpful. So I'm in support of this motion if we're doing that.
Rick, please. Rick.
Well, sorry, one other just quick idea for all of these. I think we would be well advised to have sort of an overall statement suggesting that any specific language we're recommending to change in the charter be drafted and reviewed by town council, so we don't have to repeat that for each and every motion where the charter is impacted.
Yes,
There we
Linda, your
go.
hand's up.
Oh, yeah, I found it. It was
job.
under reactions though, not under participants. It's weird. Again, I don't mind this motion so long as it has a period and a separation after business of the town.
All right, so the motion has been made. There isn't, or do you have anything else in it, Linda? Or
No, I'd make the motion to do the
Well,
first 4 lines and leave it there. And the rest of it can be comment or what we can work on comment some other time. But the motion should end at town.
okay, so I don't know if that was an amendment to Rick's motion, if he made that an original motion or if it's a new motion, but let's.
I don't know if we were even talking about making a formal motion yet. We were just talking about in the gist of it.
All right, then let's go.
I'll
with-
make that formal motion
There you go.
that
Okay.
it ends at town. And we can talk about comments another time. Let's just get the motions.
Okay, so motion has been made let's see if I can get the verbiage correct here. To move that the town charter be amended to require an annual presentation to the town's organization chart to the select board for its approval, said language to be drafted by town council, which is going to be sort of an overarching theme. Does that sound like your motion?
Yeah,
Okay, is there a second on the motion?
Second,
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on this motion? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote. Linda Williams,
Yeah.
Rick Atherton,
Aye.
Tucker Holland,
I,
Curtis Barnes,
Aye.
Campbell Sutton,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye as well. All right, cool. So that is one down, a couple more to go. All right, Rick, do you want to go for your second motion
Sure.
here?
The next one is under the bullet starts enforcement, and the motion is really somewhat similar to the other one. It doesn't get into who's responsible for enforcement in any way. All it does is ask that, and I'll just read the way I drafted it, moved that the town charter be amended to require an annual presentation of the town's enforcement activities to the select board for its review, period. And I think the idea here is that over the years, many people have felt that enforcement tended to only occur when citizens raised issues, and that may be the policy of the town, but whatever enforcement is undertaken ought to be brought together, made public through a report to the select board for its review. And that's all this does, is ensures transparency of a topic we've all talked about many times. And that's it. And the same issue would apply in terms of, in my own mind, where it might go in the charter, and that whatever language ends up moving forward should be drafted and approved by town council.
Linda, your hand is up.
Yay, I found it. I have a big problem with this coming from an HDC point of view. We get wackadoodle phone calls in there every April, May, June, when people come back from being away for their summer homes. We get the dumbest, pointless violation, alleged violation calls you can imagine. Most of them, probably 99.9% of them, are not violations. So there is no enforcement action by Kathy or Marcus or whoever does it at that particular day. That is a boondoggle for the building department and all the boards that are underneath it, because you have regulatory boards with the ZBA and the planning board decisions and the HDC decisions. Then you have violations from the health and the plumbing inspector. Then you got little violation notices, pink notices that go out from the wiring inspector. That is ridiculous when it comes to the building department. They'd spend more hours doing that than they will going after violators. So no, I am not in favor of this at all. You can get a general presentation, but if you're talking about 1,000 enforcement actions, some are credible and some not, that is insane. I'm just coming at it from the building department.
Tucker, I think your hand was up first.
thanks. Like I kind of had a similar comment. I mean, does enforcement need like a tighter definition? Because I personally have experienced a recent thing where someone had called looking for help with a disability and housing related issue. It really doesn't fall under me, but it's that sort of thing. And Linda's talking about it magnified by 100 or 1,000. That is that really an enforcement action or not? And it could get mischaracterized in a simple table sort of thing. So,
Not to mention the time consumption trying to put this together on an annual basis. Are you kidding me?
Campbell, your hand's up.
So One, I was wondering if this has to do with the enforcement issue that was on our to consider list, topics to investigate list. The other thing I just wanted to share that the planning board does receive, I believe it's a monthly enforcement. It's computerized, generated, but it really only has to do with enforcement, that where enforcement is necessary and the steps that have been taken. And it doesn't seem to be horribly painful. Yes, it probably takes time because everything takes time, but I find it to be rather helpful to me. And oddly, I do. So what I'm wondering, I guess, is whether, do we have a specific department we're looking at here? Are we trying to see, you know, for the police department or building, you know, because all of these things are on file, right? They're all on a computer somewhere. So I was just trying to figure out what, if this was for a specific department or whether this is just across the board, which to Linda and Tucker's point, may be an awful lot to put together.
Rick, do you want to chime in? Go for it.
I'd be happy to follow up. You know, as in preparing an organization chart, I think we leave it to the management of the town, the professional management, to decide how these elements would be implemented. And I'm hearing that in terms of the planning board, there's already such a list, so that's a big deal. But clearly we're not talking about, in my mind anyway, and I think that would be in the mind of the town administration in deciding how to implement this, that, you know, phone calls in are not meant to be enforcement actions per se. Usually an enforcement action, I think when you work on a definition, requires a positive action by a responsible town official or committee. Incidentally, when I was on the board 5 or 6 years ago, you know, the issue of enforcement, it always comes up periodically. And the town at that point developed a management tool to list enforcement actions. I don't know if it's still being followed. It may have gone the wayside of many things, but it seems to me, in terms of someone being responsible to make sure our rules and regulations and other issues are indeed properly implemented, some mechanism is appropriate. And this seems to me a fairly easy one, and it's not meant to be burdensome. If it turns out to be burdensome, then you work on the definition administratively as to how you're going to implement the section of the town charter. So,
Linda, your hand's up.
I don't think it should be in the charter at all. This is a policy issue. The selectman and Libby can decide that she wants a regular report. But when the report comes into the HDC, at least, and we're getting 170 applications a week, when it comes into the HDC or somebody complains about something, a doghouse in the yard, she has to go and investigate. It takes up she's in every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, just dealing with this kind of crap. I don't think it should be in the charter. I think it's something that you can do administratively. I am not in favor of this, and I will not be voting in favor of putting this in the charter. And I will get up and speak against it at the selectmen if I have to, because I know what kind of a boondoggle this is going to create in the building department. Planning board is different. ZBA is different. They issue decisions, which are then filed at the registry. Those decisions, if they're violated, Megan takes care of them, or some other staff member in there takes care of it. And those are a couple of months, if at all every month. They could be just 10 a year. That has nothing to do with the plumbing, the electrical, Marcus, the HDC in particular. And I've got to stand up for the HDC guys. And I've been on every board in that building as the chairman. And I know what this goes on in there. And I don't think this should go as a recommendation for the charter. I think we might make a recommendation. We might be able to separate some stuff that the town administration should look into setting a policy of such and such, not appropriate for the charter. There could have a whole nother list of stuff like that. And I think a lot of the stuff we've talked about for the last couple of years has been policy issues that they can do on their own without having to codify it in the charter and waste that kind of time. So I am not in favor of this.
Curtis, your hand's up.
Well, I'm listening to what Linda says, and I think it is possible for us in our report to make comments rather than motions, and maybe this should be a comment as a recommendation that it be expanded or developed further. So that's an option as far as I'm concerned.
Fair enough. Tucker, your hand's up.
I would second what Curtis was saying. I mean, I think there are areas where we absolutely can comment. Enforcement certainly is something that has come up from different folks in the course of some of the public hearings we had, I think, earlier on when we could gather in person. But I share the concerns that Linda has brought up.
I'm going to weigh in for a second and just say I tend to agree about this with this that it's more of a comment. However, I'm not sure if Rick was coming from this as the same point I was, but the next topic on our list is going to be a licensing board and parking commission, and it seems as though it's very difficult for us to make headway with town administration. And that we're making recommendations and we've given them the tools and they don't do anything with it. And to a degree, I appreciate that there may be a need to go to the charter to get them to actually act. I don't know that this necessarily falls into that category, but I can see where that would be, how we may want to look at things from that vantage point of saying, look, we've given you every option. You're not taking advantage of it. Now we're going to force the issue. And Rick, your hand was up first.
Just one sort of change might help everybody here. I don't know. An annual presentation of the town's enforcement. Take out the word activities because that might be far too broad. So I understand that. Enforcement actions. And it's like the HDC. If the HTC takes an enforcement action, there aren't, frankly, that many of them. There are lots of things they look at and people call and all this kind of stuff. I think that might have been picked up by activities, but they're not picked up unless the HTC as a formal commission votes on taking an enforcement action. And that ought to limit the scope of this. And the problem with our recommendations is going to be that, they all know we're going to support a licensing commission, but they obviously could have done it long ago. Sometimes they, I think, need something like this to make them take an action. Otherwise, they don't.
Linda, your hand's up.
We have asked for years for extra staff in that building department. And the one thing that came up with the ZBA and the planning and the HDC, because Marcus doesn't have any jurisdiction over HDC enforcement. We've asked for an enforcement officer because of budget constraints, et cetera, we're having trouble getting a couple of positions that are now vacant filled. So there are other forces at work here about an quote unquote enforcement officer that would just do HCC violations, ZBA violations, planning board violations. Right now, they're sort of, Marcus does a couple of them and other people do other things. Or we wait for citizens' complaints. Usually the only way enforcement starts to happen when there's a citizen's complaint. However, having been in the office for years, citizens' complaints are a pain in the butt because most of them are baseless, or I hate my neighbor, so I'm going to complain. And there is no violation. I see bad things happening with this. I just should not adopt this at all and just say we recommend a regular reporting of enforcement actions or whatever, and not put this in the charter. I will never agree to put this in the, personally, to to put this in the charter, having been through it myself.
Campbell, your hand's up.
Yes, I thought the change to actions was a good adjustment, as I believe it does narrow things down to, as was stated, things that have been voted on, actions that were taken versus, tracking every phone call and like that. I also would like to support the idea that these are all things that have been in the past recommended, and nobody does anything. And if town management thought did another person to help them do something, they would hire that person. So they seem to be able to find funding for their staff. Unfortunately, the enforcement that Linda is speaking of isn't on their radar as important enough at this time. But I think Maria Zoda has something in regarding hiring someone for the Park and Rec department and funding options for that. So maybe that's the way they have to go for an enforcement officer. I don't know, but.
Linda, your hand's up next.
That word action is not going to work. Action is Kathy making a phone call, hundreds and hundreds of them when she gets these complaints. So action is not working either, because action is her wasting an entire weekend making phone calls on stupid stuff that comes in on a Friday. Actions is not going to work for the HCC at all, or the plumbing inspector or the electrical inspector. This should not be in the charter. Policy, go ahead, selectmen, select board, do whatever you want, but it should not be in the charter.
I
It's
think
going to be a major problem. What is the action that Kathy took? She had to make a phone call. How many of those are there? Dozens a week, 52 weeks of the year. That's insane. You cannot ask that office to chart anything else other than what they're trying to keep up with.
Rick, your hand was up first.
Just to be clear, when the HDC does take an enforcement action formally and make a vote, I hope that the administrative staff keeps a list of those and follows up on them. So they're already doing this. Anyway, I hear all the discussion. So I think the way to handle this is to take a vote. And if you vote no, you vote no. I think that's a mistake because the likelihood of this seeing the light of day is close to zero after that.
Campbell, your hand's up.
Yeah, I just, I'm noticing time moving on. So I think we should make our certain point once. I think when we take up a lot of time duplicating what we're talking about, it just takes up time and we won't get through these. So I think we've heard all the arguments for and against this particular motion, and maybe a suggestion should be made about what kind of action on our part is supported by the group.
Tucker, your hand's up and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I just was going to say that. I agree with Rick's principle of, to provide an annual reporting of actual formal actions in one place. Is transparency in government. I think that is a good thing. But I guess fundamentally, again, I share the concern with that Linda's expressed about how are we defining action and just not wanting to get into a quagmire kind of thing. So anyway.
Okay. All right. How about somebody makes a motion of some sort or something on this? And
I'll make a motion not to consider this as one of our motions. How?
Second.
That?
okay, hold on. Motion to not consider this.
Not recommend this for inclusion in the charter.
Okay, motion to not.
Yeah.
Include this as, you say motion to not include this as a charter amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that motion was made. Is there a second?
Second.
For a second. Okay, any further discussion on this motion? Not hearing any. Let's do roll call vote to not include this as a charter amendment.
A positive vote means don't include it.
Yes.
Positive vote means don't include it. Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll go roll call vote. Rick.
No.
Okay. Tucker.
Aye.
Okay. Campbell.
You're muted.
No,
No. Linda.
Yes.
Curtis.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well, with the note that I think this would be a good thing to mention as a comment to the select board as opposed to.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on. All right, next one, Rick. Hopefully this one
I
should be
think
easier.
this is probably picked up by Curtis's as well, but essentially requesting, or I'm not, and I don't know if in this case we want to establish the commissions in the charter, but to take a motion that we request the select board to establish commissions with the authority to issue licenses and permits. And then I tried to give a little description of what areas might be included. And I would hope town council would be helpful in clarifying those issues for us. But really, it's intended to have a motion that we think this is important to facilitate the select board paying attention to more important things, and that they really need to get on with it. So that the motion is drafted in a little bit longer form. And the motion that I had to just drafted said, move that the town charter be amended to clearly authorize, this doesn't say they have to do it, to clearly authorize the select board to establish and delegate authority to a licensing commission and a parking commission. Both of which they may have implied authority for right now, but many towns have a much more explicit section in their charter to make it absolutely clear the select board has that power. And that's the motion.
Curtis, your hand's up first.
Well, first of all, I think we should separate them, as I have, from a parking commission and a licensing board. And secondly, I think it ought to be placed in the charter because the select board will ignore it again and again and again.
Linda.
Well, remember, the word is authorized. That we can't force them to do it unless we say shall. That's the legal term, as John knows. Curtis, I think the word we have to just put in separate parking commission. But do we have a separate sewer commission, or are the selectmen still the sewer commission?
The selectmen are still a sewer commission as far as I know.
Because Rick, we had talked years ago, and Curtis, you may remember that, about setting up a separate sewer commission
Yep.
as opposed to the selectmen being the end all of end alls. And I wouldn't be opposed to adding a separate sewer commission in here either, because that was talked about when we first did the charter. But we weren't really splitting things up back in those days. But I think the licensing commission is good, wastes less time, and the parking commission is a good idea considering all the issues facing us at the moment. And also a separate sewer commission, and just spread it out. Most towns have separate ones. The selectmen are not everything. They have separate, and certainly a separate sewer commission. So I think we should add that as well. But I understand, Curtis, is separate. They're not all one commission here.
Okay. Rick, I think I saw your hand up before Campbell, and then we'll go to Campbell.
All right, so I just think we're to two things. One, we can talk about how to draft this if there's I'm not sure yet we agree with Curtis totally about making it an absolute requirement within the charter. I'm not object to that. as opposed to making clear their authority. On the sewer commissioner, I think that has many more issues to it. And I think we're better off to, if we really want to do that, treat it as a separate request and not included in with these ideas. These are much more administrative in many ways. Sewers are hardly that. So that would be my thought.
Campbell.
So I just wanted to review what we put up in November, where under the establishment of a licensing commissioner board, we said it seemed prudent to the committee that if the select board deems it appropriate, the select board is empowered to create its own licensing commission board. This could be done administratively, would not need any type of charter amendment. This type of commission board would be a step in lessening the amount of time the select board spends. So we have the same issue there. The establishment of this commission board is also within the purview of the select board and town administration. For parking commission, we said that a separate parking commission has been addressed by the select board and by warrant article 66 at the 2018 annual town meeting. Said article is attached here too. And then for 7, the establishment of a sewer commission, we just referred similar to licensing board, that if they want to set one, further due diligence should be done to better understand the roles and responsibilities tasks to accomplish the mission. The committee, while potentially supportive of this concept, is wary of the unintended consequences that may be created by creating such a commission. I just want to apologize for taking up so much time reading that, but I thought it would be helpful to refer to what we had already set.
Curtis.
Okay, my concern about this is that if we authorize the select board to establish, they don't have to do it.
That's right.
And quite frankly, what we're doing is, what the select board is doing is running the town department by department or section by section. Their job is to set policy, not to run departments. And this puts them in a position of running the damn departments, which is what's wrong with this place right now.
Campbell, is your hand still up, or are you?
Well, no, I was actually going to lower it because I think that the clearer your language can be in the charter, I believe the better can be made of the charter. Even if they choose to not have a licensing commission or a parking commission, the voters can pressure them to create these things if the language is clear enough within the charter. When it's sort of broad or wishy-washy, people don't know if they can or they can't or what have you. And I think this, sort of gets town council involved in clarification, which I think is a good thing.
Rick, I think
Tucker
your hand's
had
up.
to leave, right? Tucker had to go for a minute.
Yeah, Tucker had to leave.
And I got to tell you, I'm supposed to be at another meeting for a few minutes myself at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
They may have to shuffle along without me.
Yeah, Rick, go ahead.
So, my sense of listening to this discussion is that I think we're all in favor of the establishment of a licensing and parking commission. So I don't have an objection to having our motion be changed from clearly authorizing to require the establishment of. And
It'll be the word.
leave it to town council to figure out how to write that. So
Right.
if that would help make us all feel more comfortable, I have no objection.
Well, the word would be shall, not require. It would be shall establish.
I'm not trying to wordsmith. That's fine with me, Linda.
Yeah, can I make a suggestion then? I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but I think when it comes to these motions, we should have as many committee members as possible, including Tucker and Campbell, who suddenly has dropped off. I wish we had gotten more done today, but
Let's come back to it then.
I
I
say
think
everyone
we
okay
need
if
to
we,
adjourn this meeting now
I
and
say, hold on,
reconvene.
let me finish. I was just gonna say, let's revise the motions. We have the motions that Curtis sent out, so we can review those for Thursday, and we can try to crank through Rick's last two motions and these other motions, and then move on, because we are running out of time to get this to select board and town and
Well,
town.
I think Campbell read them. I just read them again off the November one, and I think we're all in favor of something along this line. But we can come back to it.
I think that's right. I think we're probably a lot closer with a lot of these than we think, if that makes any sense. So, all right. So, I mean, that's my suggestion, that we revise that and we work on go to Curtis's for the next meeting. And so real quick question. I believe our next meeting is Thursday at 9 a.m. Do you want me to try to schedule it for an hour and a half instead of an hour?
Yes. Give us 2 hours, and we can always adjourn earlier than that. That's what we always do with the other meetings. We always make them longer than we actually are.
Okay, and I will set that up in Zoom then. Okay.
So are we gonna move ahead on Rick's motion at this point?
No,
Not today.
No.
Okay,
Not today. I think we need a full committee for these.
All right. Are we leaving the meeting so I can get to my other one?
Yeah, if you wanna scoot, we can finish.
I need to stay for an adjournment because we won't have a quorum.
Well, do you need 51% or is 50% enough for a quorum?
51.
All right. Any other business? Hearing none.
I'll
Date
make a
time of the
motion
next
to
meeting
adjourn.
will be all on Thursday, May
Whatever
20th.
that is. 20th? Oh,
That sounds right.
Second.
Thursday, yeah, 21. All right, motion adjourn at 10:05.
oh,
Motion in a
roll
second.
call. Oh, he
All
did.
right, roll
Second.
call vote. Rick Atherton,
Aye.
Curtis Barnes,
aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
John Brescher votes aye
Thanks,
as well.
guys.
All right, everyone, we'll see you.
John, will you stay on for a minute?
Yes,
All
hold
I'm
on.
saying is, all of these motions need, as Rick has said,